I would like to honestly say to you that the white backlash is merely a new name for an old phenomenon. It's not something that just came into being because shouts of black power, or because Negroes engaged in riots in Watts, for instance. The fact is that the state of California voted a fair housing bill out of existence before anybody shouted black power, or before anybody rioted in Watts. It may well be that shouts of black power and riots in Watts and the Harlems and the other areas are the consequences of the white backlash rather than the cause of them. What it is necessary to see is that there has never been a single solid, monistic, determined commitment on the part of the vast majority of white Americans. The whole question of civil rights and on the whole question of racial equality. This is something that truth impels all men of goodwill to admit.
Stand up.
Yes, indeed. That is the great Dr. Martin Luther King, of course, and I share that one with you today because his daughter, Bernice King, shared it last night on Threads saying, on my father's 97th birthday, I encourage you to listen to this powerfully relevant excerpt from his speech, The Other America, where he talks about the white backlash. Yeah, that's right. Not the new. Hello, friends, and welcome to today's episode of Stand Up. It is Martin Luther King Day. He hasn't canceled it, yes, though he did take away free entry on this day to people in national parks. So let's not forget about that. And I'm very animated and motivated by all of Dr. King's words and his actions, of course, including, especially I often mention, his famous critique of the white moderate, which some might put me in the category of. I think I'm more of a lefty leftist, but still, that comes from his letter from the Birmingham jail where he expressed this profound disappointment in the white moderates' preference for order over justice, viewing their lukewarm support and desire for the, quote, right time as a greater obstacle than outright racists like the KKK, highlighting their tendency to prioritize maintaining peace over challenging systemic injustice. And in that quote from his letter, he writes, I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in his stride toward freedom is not the white Citizens Council or the Ku Klux Klaner, but the white moderate, who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, who constantly says, I agree with you in the goal that you seek, but I can't agree with your methods of direct action, who paternalistically feels that he can set the timetable for another man's freedom. And that's the quote written originally in April of '63 from the Birmingham jail, and addressing specifically the criticism of white clergymen who called his direct actions unwise and untimely. Well, we're the ones we've been waiting for, whites, and we are not going to stand for it. So I have been influenced by Dr. King and his work since I discovered it in elementary school, and I don't know how everyone wasn't. So I never stopped, and I greatly appreciate you being here on Martin Luther King Day. I hope you have the day off. I hope you're doing something good with it, maybe action, maybe doing some good. Thinking of all of you who are suffering, who are dealing with any kind of struggle, serious struggle, of course. I'm still here in my boyhood bedroom, Syracuse, New York, where my mom is still in the hospital. But on the mend, thank you for all of those of you reaching out. I'll be here for a couple more days, going back to help my daughter with something on a project, a film she's working on. And I'm just going to be her driver for a couple of days and then likely return here to Syracuse, finding my purpose. Hopefully you are yours. But of course, this show is what drives me so much these days, and very happy to have you here. Can't do it without you. Patreon.com/Pete Dominic. I've got a great guest joining me today. It's the great J.L. Cauvin, who is running for Congress in New Jersey's 12th District, JL4NJ.com. To learn more, of course, Georgetown educated lawyer, a civil rights leader himself, in my opinion, a hilarious and very talented comedian, a good friend of mine, and the show. JL joins me at 32 minutes in. if you want to jump ahead, but I have got a whole bunch of clips for you. I don't have all the headlines, but I do have clips for you. I'll get back to headlines. I promise you that, but it's a lot. It's a lot here, wearing a lot of different hats, and each segment I do, the clips, the headlines, takes hours because I like to get it right and get as comprehensive and robust as I can. I do have that in the nature or the form of a clip show. So let's get to it right now, and starting with Dr. King and, of course, his words at the top of the show. And let's go to Texas state congressman and Senate candidate going up against the Queen Jasmine Crockett. But we like James Tallarico. We will be happy with either one of them. I think winning that Senate seat would be a huge impact, of course, make a giant difference not only for Texas but for the country in the U.S. Senate, and certainly for people who are seeking civil and human rights in this country. James Tallarico himself was at some gathering. I'm not sure when this was. I think it's over the weekend at a convention where there's a whole bunch of black folks in the audience, and he nailed it, as many other people have already about this day, that Republicans better not be quoting MLK Jr., a preemptive fuck to any who do, by the way, says my friend Maya on stage on Threads. But here is James Tallarico at that gathering, I think over the weekend.
The worst politicians in America will be quoting Martin Luther King Jr. You can't quote "I Have a Dream" on MLK Day and then legislate against that dream every other day of the year. Dr. King described what he called the three evils: racism, poverty, and war. What would Dr. King say about 10 million children living in poverty in the wealthiest nation on earth? What would Dr. King say about a maternal mortality rate in Texas, which is 3 times higher for black women? What would Dr. King say about a new American imperialism seeking to colonize Greenland and Venezuela? And what would Dr. King say about masked men in unmarked vehicles kidnapping people off of our streets? Dr. King dreamed of a world without racism, without poverty, without war. It's the dream that got him killed. And it's the dream that we must make a reality.
Yeah, well, we are a long way from that, but I do appreciate that should always be the goal. That was his goal. That continues to be our goal. Those of us who care, who are part of the movement and trying to make a difference and make this country and this world a better place. All right, well, let's move on to everything else I've got for you. I want to start with Greenland here in a moment, but just given the fact that we are constantly flooded with news and headlines because our country is run by a malignant, narcissist, tyrant, authoritarian baby, I thought it was interesting the way that ABC News's Jon Carroll started one of the main network Sunday shows, ABC's This Week, kind of capturing a lot of the stories that they're following. Here it is. Here's how the show started yesterday.
Good morning. Welcome to This Week. This morning, we had a hard time figuring out where to start the show. The frenzy of activity emanating from the White House so far in the first weeks of 2026 has been dizzying. Just yesterday, President Trump announced a new round of tariffs on 8 of America's European allies, including the UK, France, and Germany, for sending small contingents of troops to Greenland in the wake of Trump's threat to take the territory from Denmark. He has said repeatedly the U.S. needs to acquire Greenland and has not ruled out using military force to make that happen. Aside from threatening war over Greenland, consider some of the other things President Trump has done during the opening days of the new year. He ordered a dead-of-night special operations force to capture the president of Venezuela and declared the U.S. is now in control of the country. He said the U.S. could also take action on Cuba, Colombia, and Mexico. He told the New York Times that the only thing that can constrain him internationally is, quote, my own morality, saying, my own mind, it's the only thing that can stop me. He's threatened military action against Iran, promising Iranian protesters help is on the way. He's threatened to invoke the Insurrection Act to send active duty U.S. military to Minnesota, promising citizens, quote, "The day of reckoning and retribution is coming." His Justice Department has subpoenaed Fed Chair Jerome Powell, launched criminal investigations into Democrats in Congress who urged troops not to go along with unlawful orders, searched a reporter's home, and prompted the resignation of 6 federal prosecutors in Minnesota for investigating Renee Good's wife, but not the man who shot her. And now sources tell us DOJ has opened criminal investigations into the Democratic governor of Minnesota and the Democratic mayor of Minneapolis.
All right. Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot, Jonathan Carroll. Thank you very much for setting us up here. Let's start with some of the clips I've gathered, reaction to Greenland, including from historian and expert in authoritarianism, former Yale. Now he moved to Canada, the great Tim Snyder, talking about Greenland's strategic importance.
Tim Snyder here with a quick word about Greenland. The president says that the United States must take it in order to secure it from Russia and China. The opposite is true. We have had a base on Greenland since 1951. The president speaks of nuclear defense. That base has been doing exactly that job for the last 75 years. It does it as part of the NATO alliance, which means that were Russia or China to threaten Greenland, not only the United States, but all of the important European powers would be there to defend it. By claiming that we must take Greenland, we throw all of this away. We destroy the alliance, we destroy our friendships, we destroy the neighborhood, and we get absolutely nothing in return because we already have a base there, which is doing the job that it should be doing.
All right, let's go back to ABC's This Week, where the Republican congressman from Texas, Mike McCall, was a guest on the show and basically could not make hide nor hair or any sense even of this strategy around invading or taking or whatever it is, Greenland.
What do you make of what's going on with the president in Greenland? And now he slapped tariffs on 8 of our allies in Europe. He's not ruling out military force to get Greenland. What is going on?
You know, Greenland has been looked at by presidents since we purchased Alaska. It is very strategic right now from a national security standpoint against China and Russia. But in 1951, we signed a treaty with Denmark that allows us full access to Greenland to protect Greenland. And this was after World War II. President Truman initially was involved, and then Eisenhower. And the fact is, the president has full military access to Greenland to protect us from any threats. So if he wants to purchase Greenland, that's one thing. But for him to militarily invade would turn Article 5 of NATO on its very head and, in essence, put us at war with NATO itself. It would end up abolishing NATO as we know it, an organization that has lasted for over 4 to 5 decades and protected us from world wars. My father was a bombardier in World War II, and it's worked to prevent world wars.
And as you have just said, there's actually no reason to because we have access to the island.
We have
a treaty
full military access. And if we want to put more military in there, we can. We don't have to invade it. If he wants to buy it, that's fine, but I don't see a willing seller right now.
All right, Chairman McCall.
All right, Chairman McCall, thank you. That was, I guess, as good as we're going to get from any Republican in the House, much less, well, there's a couple that are, I think this is crazy in the Senate as well. So that's important, but they're probably all flipped. They always do. Here is the Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, on this.
For Greenland and for the Kingdom of Denmark, we are NATO partners with Denmark, and so our full partnership stands. Our obligations on Article 5, Article 2 of NATO stand, and we stand full square behind those.
All right. Well, that makes sense. Here's another expert. This is not, earlier we heard from Mike McCall. This is Mike McFaul, the former U.S. ambassador to Russia. Pretty smart guy. He was on MS Now over the weekend.
We have heard denials from Danish and Greenlandic officials about Russian and Chinese assets on or around Greenland. What was the situation when you were U.S. ambassador to Russia? Does Russia have assets on the island? Has Russia ever recently seriously considered taking over Greenland? Does President Trump have reason to say, as he has repeatedly, the U.S. needs Greenland for national security?
No.
Okay.
This is the dumbest idea ever that I can ever remember, both in working on foreign policy or as a student of foreign policy. And I have studied American foreign policy since the 18th century. This makes no sense whatsoever. If there were threats, there are no assets there, first of all. But, look at the map you just showed and you look at the water and you think, well, where might Russian subs come from? Where might Russian ships come from? Of course, they're up there. But we don't need to annex Greenland to protect us against those. And by the way, I'm glad you have this map. Look at some of the other countries that are up there. They're all NATO allies. So if we annex Greenland and blow up NATO, we lose access to all those other bases, all those, you might not be surprised, we might have intelligence assets in all those other countries up there that are members of the NATO alliance. It just makes no military sense whatsoever. Second, I dealt with Greenland, by the way, when I worked at the National Security Council, responsible for Russia. We have an agreement with the Kingdom of Denmark, goes now back to 1951. We can put as many soldiers and bases there as we want if the goal is really national security. But the goal is not national security. The goal is a vanity project for President Trump. He wants Greenland to become Trumpland so that he will be remembered in history as the guy that expanded the United States of America. And we just have to stop this idiotic idea that negative consequences of blowing up NATO, the most enduring, powerful alliance in the history of the world, to put a few bases in Greenland it is, in my view, it's the worst foreign policy idea that I can ever remember in American history.
Wow, that says a lot. The worst ever? I mean, Iraq was pretty bad, but he's saying this is even worse. Michael McFaul on MS Now over the weekend. Let's go from Greenland to Minneapolis, where CBS's Margaret Brennan had the mayor of Minneapolis on. He was on several shows, by the way. State of the Union with CNN, I saw him on, also ABC's This Week. But Margaret Brennan asked skeptically the following question, and it's just the way she asked the question. I don't like it at all. She's taken a turn toward the right, obviously, over at CBS. Really disappointed to see Margaret Brennan, I feel, making that change, but nonetheless, she wants to keep her cushy job.
You said occupying force. Don't you think it's a bit much?
I mean, look, you can go through whatever rhetorical flourish you want, but when you have 3,000 ICE agents and border control come to the city, when you've got this supposed threat of 1,500 military coming to the city, yeah, that's very much what it feels like. When you outnumber local police officers 5 and 6 to 1, that is the vibe. And so the bottom line is, if the goal were safety, this is not how you get there. If the goal is safety, I can give you a very antidote to some of the violence that we're seeing. It's have them leave.
Well, they argue, the administration that is, that this is a sanctuary county and a sanctuary city, and they are enforcing federal immigration law, and that, therefore, this is called for, that they're cleaning up a mess that the last administration created. I mean, how do you prescribe in this unprecedented situation for local and federal officials to work together here?
We have worked together. We do work together when this is about getting murderers and rapists and all the other bad stuff that Kristi Noem just said off the street. We have worked with the DEA and the FBI. We've worked with the ATF and the U.S. Attorney's Office to drive down crime, get violent criminals off the streets. And on the north side, shootings are the lowest that they've ever been, I believe, on record. And so nobody's against that. But that is not this. This is not about safety. What this is about is coming into our city by the thousands and terrorizing people simply because they're Latino or Somali. And people in Minneapolis are speaking up. They're speaking up peacefully. They're standing up for their neighbors. And this is not just about resisting Trump. This is about loving and caring for the people that call this city home. And it's been inspiring.
Well,
listen to her exasperation because she can't believe she still has to keep being skeptical. I mean, she's supposed to be an objective journalist, so she has to ask tough questions to everybody that comes on. But the way those questions are loaded, me no likey, no me gusta. All right, let's move on to Arizona Senator, it's Ruben Gallego, who has some courageous feelings for a senator from Arizona about the ICE agency.
Well, look, I think ICE needs to be totally torn down. It has to be, created in the image of what people want, right? And what does that look like? From my experience running in Arizona, in a very hard state when it comes to immigration issues, people want immigration enforcement that goes after criminals, right, and focuses on criminals. And immigration enforcement is actually focused on security and not the goon squad that has come from Stephen Miller and Donald Trump. One that issues warrants, one that doesn't have people masked and acting like, we're a third world police force. What we're seeing right now is not what we want from ICE. And we can create and have a force that's actually focused on immigration and on security and not this type of intimidation that's happening right now.
All right. There you go, Ruben Gallego. And now a couple of clips from two of America's most famous lead men, front men, musicians, singer-songwriter. Here is the greatest. The greatest? I don't know. What the hell do I know? What am I talking about music or giving anybody labels? But anyway, Springsteen at one of his concerts, I think over the weekend, he got pretty vocal, which is always great. From him, here he is.
Believe in the power of the law and that no one stands above it. If you stand against heavily armed, masked federal troops invading an American city and using Gestapo tactics against our fellow citizens, if you believe you don't deserve to be murdered for exercising your American right to protest, to this president, and as the mayor of that city has said, ICE should get the fuck out of Minneapolis. So this song is for you, in the memory of mother of three, an American citizen, Renee Good. Thank you.
Yeah, the boss weighing in, saying her name. A lot of celebrities are. I saw Matt Damon wearing a Be Good pin. Mark Ruffalo was wearing one, I believe, something similar as well at the Golden Globes. And here, not to be outdone by Springsteen, is Dave Matthews. Looked like he was out for a walk somewhere and just talking to his phone, saying some pretty important stuff. So I thought I'd share it because he's an influential guy.
I don't want my taxes to pay for invading foreign countries under false premises, kidnapping presidents to steal their natural resources and threatening to do it to more countries, claiming that for somehow sovereign nations belong to us or something's owed to us. I don't want my taxes to pay for ICE, to masked thugs to roam our streets and terrorize our communities and rip families apart. We should be taking care of each other. We should be minding each other. We should be housing the homeless. We shouldn't be, throwing people to the ground. Which brings me to Renee Nicole Good, murdered in front of her fellow citizens in Minneapolis, murdered in the streets. And no matter what narrative this administration is trying to sell us, we can see the videos. These people who are trying to tell us not to believe what we see. It is so horrific. I don't understand how you can claim that she was ramming their cars or that she was attacking them. There's nothing to suggest that. And it's mind-boggling and it's deeply upsetting to me and to so many people, and we can't just let it slide.
What could you do? Oh, sorry, I was doing a Dave Matthews impression. It was terrible. I apologize to everybody. All right, here is Heather Cox Richardson letting you know what you can do.
What do ordinary people do in this time? And there are two things that people always say. The first is act locally. The place you start to change politics is at the local level. And so do that. I mean, you never forget that the reason we know what happened to Ms. Good was because so many of her neighbors were out there filming. And, you may not feel like holding up your camera and pushing a button is heroic, but remember, we wouldn't have known about George Floyd if that woman had not had the courage the unspeakable courage, really, to stand there while the cops are screaming at her and videotaping what they were doing. So acting locally like that, standing up for your neighbors, recording things, making a record, running for office, showing up to school board meetings, doing things at the local level matters for the future. Matters now, but it also matters for the future because it will change the way people think about governance. But there is now a crucial need to really, really press on Republican lawmakers. The Democrats, for sure, don't leave them, call out the people who are not speaking up enough and really encourage those who are. But at this point, Republicans need to know that you do not stand behind Donald Trump's fascist government. And when you think about the world that way, they need to hear that. And I will tell you, there are some people who are on his side. I mean, and I watch the news today. There are some people out there saying, this is great. We got to go after people this way. That is un-American. That is, the idea that the state can use its power against American citizens like that. This is literally what we formed this country to stop. They are un-American. And where we are in this moment is those of us who care about democracy versus those people who want to establish an authoritarian or a fascist government. And that's not about politics. It's not Republicans versus Democrats. It's about recovering American democracy for our good, but also for the good of the world.
Good advice from Heather Cox Richardson. I like it and hope I have been doing just most of that most of my life and career, but really good always to be reminded. And she's very respected authoritarian expert. She's not an authority. It made it sound like I was just going to say she's an authoritarian. She is not. She's an expert on history and authoritarianism. Everybody knows her. All right. Let's move on to just a clip from the speech of Virginia's first female governor, her historic inauguration yesterday. Mikey Sherrill of New Jersey will be inaugurated, I think, tomorrow. But here's Abigail Spanberger, Virginia's first female governor ever. Can you believe it?
5 times. 75 times in Virginia's storied history, we have witnessed this transfer from one governor to the next. 75 times a governor has taken this oath. And so many of those times it's been right here on these steps that those words have been spoken. It is the honor of my life to stand before you and take the oath today. The history and the gravity of this moment are not lost on me. I maintain an abiding sense of gratitude to those who worked generation after generation to ensure women could be among those casting ballots, but who could only dream of a day like today. I stand before those who made it possible for a woman to also participate in that peaceful transfer of power and take that oath. And it is with a profound sense of duty to all Virginians that I assume the governorship and pledge myself to work tirelessly on behalf of our Commonwealth.
All right, there she is, Abigail Spanberger. Yesterday, Mikey Sherrill will be inaugurated tomorrow. Let's go to actor Noah Wyle. Why am I playing this? Because the guy's been a doctor on TV for 35 years. I think somebody at the Golden Globes made a joke. You've been my doctor for most of my life. Anyway, he is playing a doctor in the show The Pit, which I haven't seen, but when I asked one of the nurses in the ICU who's taking care of my mom, what, if any, television show captured what they do, she said that would probably be the one. It captures the kind of stress and burnout and depression and everything that comes with being on the front lines in healthcare. Anyway, I thought this was a pretty interesting and accurate analysis of what's going to happen to America, what is happening to America healthcare under the fascist rule that we now have.
These cuts in Medicaid and Medicare are going to be crazy, as I'm sure you're well aware. The closures of rural hospitals are going to overpopulate urban hospitals. People are going to lose their health insurance. People are going to delay care. People are going to continue to come in sicker, higher acuity cases. They're going to be more volatile when they come in. That's going to put more of a burden on staff. We have a nursing shortage. We've got a boarding crisis. All this stuff is sort of moving towards this perfect storm of unsustainability. Misinformation is being spouted all over the place, and nobody's really putting a circle around an objective medical fact anymore and saying, no, this is real. Like, vaccinations work. They're working really well, and they're saving a lot of lives right now.
All right. Noah Wiley, nailing it. I thought he said it perfectly. All right. Well, let's go from all that depressing clips to some comedy. Here is Stephen Colbert, CBS's Late Show on Friday night.
You got to hand it to that auto worker for getting under Trump's skin like compound butter on a Thanksgiving turkey. And all because he brought up the Epstein files. Which reminds me, where are the Epstein files? Where are they? We were told that there would be Epstein files. In fact, you signed a law mandating that you would have to release the Epstein files by the middle of last month, but you still haven't. It kind of makes you seem like a, what's the phrase? Pedophile protector!
Yeah. Yeah, then he gave him the finger. So I thought that was a lot of fun. All right. There you go. Saturday Night Live was live over the weekend. Pretty funny, but so much of it was jokes you had to see and can't hear, and I do mostly a podcast here for you. But definitely go watch that if you want to have some laughs today. Look it up on the YouTube or wherever you find your stuff. Now let's get to my guest today, the great J.L. Cauvin, who's running for Congress in New Jersey's 11th District. The Fighting 11th. It's JL4NJ.com. You'll hear me say that many times in this interview because we want to raise money for him by the fundraising deadline, which is just a couple days this week. It's actually on the 24th, I believe. And so donate to him now. You all know him. He's a regular here. He's a subscriber, a huge supporter of mine. I'm a huge supporter, of course, of his and all that he does. You can hire him right now to do a very funny cameo. You can listen to his podcast. You can follow him on all the social media. Former Georgetown educated lawyer. Now he's working for a nonprofit that keeps people from being unhoused, from being kicked out of their housing. He's doing great work in all the ways. You know him, you love him. He's brilliant, political analyst, one of my favorite. I love getting his view on all kinds of things, including everything that we talked about today, from having to give his dog back because it bit a neighbor. We talk a little bit about that, to obviously everything that's happening on the campaign and in the country. Few good questions on that as well. So I think you're going to like it. It's a great conversation. You can watch it on Substack or YouTube right now at Stand Up with Pete. Go over there and subscribe and like it. That would be huge. And let's do it right now. The great J.L. Cauvin. It's good to see you. Thank you for joining me. You have already been very kind and generous, expressing your sympathies for my mom's accident. I appreciate that, and everybody watching. But you yourself have had a recent setback. While you're running for Congress, you're working full time, you're taking care of all kinds of people in your life and things, and now you have something that has set you back, and we want to offer you some love and light. What happened?
Yeah, unfortunately, my new dog, Clifford. He's a big, beautiful guy. He's very sweet, but he is 13% pit bull, apparently. His DNA was like 51%, golden 30-something% Labrador. So that's pretty good. You know, those are two very docile breeds. 13% pit bull. And apparently the pit bull side, he lunges a lot at people, but me being a big Saint Bernard of a human being can hold him back. But unfortunately, when Laura was walking him, she tried to keep him at bay, but he got a hold of a neighbor and bit her. And so now we have to bring him back to the agency, the adoption agency, and they're very good. It's like the one solace here is it's not like we got him from some kill shelter and we're just sending him back to death row after, Trump insisted. We've got these dogs and we're reinstating death penalty for dogs. We're reinstating it very strongly. Even if they don't misbehave, we're just going to be sending more dogs. They say dogs go to heaven. I say dogs go to death chamber. But we No, but we laugh because we're sad.
Yeah, I am
but
so
we have
sorry. That is
the agency is
hard.
really good,
Yeah.
and they're obviously not going. It's not the type of place where they're going to be like, we're putting him in juvie. They're just going to try to work with him and find the right setting. And maybe an apartment building was not the best place for him. But he was always just sweet. He was, except for those moments when he just would randomly lunge at somebody, and when he's an 80-pound like ball of muscle. So
like me,
it's exactly.
Yeah,
but with less piercing green eyes, I feel like you got bit by a vampire while you were up in upstate New York.
Yes, they're beautiful. I'm sitting in front of my childhood bedroom window looking out at my mom's bird feeders, talking to you, and I'm so sorry to hear about the dog, and I'm happy to hear that he's going to...
Say his name, Pete.
Was it Chipples? Molly? Muzzles?
Chipples. Yeah, the very common dog name of Chipples. Clifford.
Clifford, excuse me. I'm sorry to hear about Clifford. I know that that's hard for Laura, especially, who has really fallen in love with him.
Especially with me every day saying, good morning, babe, it's your fault.
Isn't it true that your parents tried to do that with you?
Nothing from you on that. Nothing.
I thought I had my own joke. Went out a better joke, but I was ramping. I didn't even really hear it, but I think it was sexist in nature and abusive sounding. So I decided.
No, I just said I wake up every morning and I say, good morning, it's your fault.
Yes, that it was abusive. It was horrible, manipulative, and terrible. You're a terrible person. And I know you didn't do that and wouldn't do that. And I know you're hurting. And so we're sending you all the love and light that you had to give your dog back. And hopefully the dog gets everything it needs and goes to a family, a different family or something.
It's very sad that he's very perceptive, though, because as he looks at Laura crying, he gets upset, which is even worse because you feel that connection.
He knows.
As opposed to me, where I go, all right, I'm going to see a movie. Just don't get those tears on the couch.
Animals are just the best. Animals, all the living things. I'm watching my mom's birds. They're as important to me because my mom has been feeding them and there's snow. It's all blanket and snow. So we feed the birds every morning. That's like something that gives my dad purpose. And that's what animals are wonderful. My friend has one fish and he goes in on his day off to his office and feeds the fish. People, they're so important to us. I think it's a lovely thing to do in these dark times is to have a creature bite a neighbor and have to give it back.
Yeah, it's, and I honestly, I'm thinking about just getting Clifford an ice vest and saying he didn't actually bite her. That's bullshit. She attacked him.
Let's start there since you brought it up. Now, let's go through the latest in your campaign, and then we'll go to ICE. I want to start with checking in with you. You are running for Congress. We want to do anything we can to help you, which could be maybe a clip out of this interview that you can share based on, what you're seeing, what you're experiencing out there. But first and foremost, you're in New Jersey, the 11th district?
Correct.
And the primary is the date?
February 5th, a Thursday, just as the founders intended.
How many days between now and that primary?
We have 18 days.
And so far, your plan that you've executed has worked out. I think it's fair to say better than you even expected. You still have a long way to go and you're a long shot, but you're really happy with so far what's happened. And given the opportunity, which is anything anybody could ask for, to speak in front of people, you really do obviously excel because you're a professional in front of audiences and have been for a very long time. Also, you're obviously really smart and passionate, and you know the landscape here. So that's what I'm getting from where you're at, but you're still trailing in your feelings. There's not really a lot of polling coming out, right? I mean, where are you at? How are you doing? And what can we do for you?
Yeah. I am polling at 0% with the Victims of Dog Violence organization. So,
it's so bad. I'm sorry,
guys. No, and I apologize. I'm literally doing this because I'm sad the rest of the time over this.
Totally fine. That's what we're doing.
I will say this. This race, it's like whenever you're sitting going, oh, donations. Oh, we got a good day of donations. Oh, we had a shitty day of donations. And okay. Well, this week, our new digital ad is going out. Our first piece of mail is going out, which kind of emphasizes the two things that are most salient about me as a candidate. One is the comedian thing. Like I said, we have to lean into this because and this is why fundraising is still important. We had two options in terms of what universe do we mail to? Do we go with the smaller, yes, these people will definitely vote in the primary, like these are the people who vote every 2 years, like no matter what? I said, let's go to a broader one. Let's go to the people who voted in 2024, but not 2025. You know what I mean? Like, in other words, the largest possible group of Democrats.
You're losing me with the detail. You're losing me with the details of the mailing itself and why and how you're telling me the decisions that have to be made and who you're going to target and so on based on their voting record. But I mean, but I'm getting lost in the details.
Okay, I didn't actually get to the details yet, but if you're lost there, then fine. Okay, the point is, my campaign. What is angering me about this? Let's go to anger, shall we, Pete? Is I feel like there are a lot of fucking cowards voting in primaries that are going to play it completely safe, and they will talk that shit about we need new voices, we need fighters. And then they will say, excuse me, hack, who I've known for 20 years, I'll vote for you. I'll just pray to God that some other district, whether it's Jasmine Crockett or James Tallarico, or that fucking Jon Stewart decides to vote, or the fucking MAGA apostates like George Conway get in the race, and I can support them because they're famous. This kind of safe bullshit that I'm seeing is frustrating because they talk the need for fighters and new voices, and then you show up with receipts for how well you've done in communicating that fight. You show up with receipts for how educated you are, that you are doing work on the front lines of the affordability crisis. And you can't talk like this to people. This is for your community that knows me.
No, I think you should to some extent talk like that. You're not blaming anybody, but you're pointing to the fact that if you want something different, you have to hire someone different who has the skill set to be the fighter that you're demanding, as opposed to nominating some known entity. And
the rhetoric is not matching like the on the ground support yet. And when I meet people, and that's the advantage of having such a short primary season when you're an established candidate, is that time is, financing. We ran a lean campaign and we still need money to just reach our goals for what we have put out. But time was the biggest advantage that the powers that be sort of secured.
Sure.
Because the more I see these people rolling out the same 3-minute speech at 19 different events, reading off of paper where it's like, I have your speech memorized. How do you not have it memorized?
You keep switching yours up every time?
Every time.
And I would imagine you could capture everyone on video and then share it and have a bunch of different messages, but they all want to stay on.
They all
message.
focus on the same themes. No, but I focus on the same themes. But the last thing we did in front of a large crowd at Caldwell University for the League of Women Voters was, I said, everybody in here is and you can actually watch that on YouTube. We signed a contract that you could only share. You could only share the full video. Like, they made us agree to that so that you're not splicing up their video because they're a nonpartisan organization.
Okay, all right.
But it's 35 minutes to watch all 11 opening statements. But what I said to them is, I said, you all are informed voters. You all are passionate about this. That's why you're here.
Right.
That's why you're at these events before a congressional primary, engaging with candidates. You need to think, who is out there that will actually decide this race? The thousands and thousands of people who will not come to a single one of these events. You have to spread the word, and you have to decide with your endorsement and your engagement who can make the best case for this district and this party.
I like the way you're talking.
Who can necessarily just win the most engaged voters, because the man or woman who can win you guys over may be the best candidate. He also just may be a local hack who there's a lot of familiarity. And people came up to me after, and of course, they ranging from full-throated support to, I really like what you're saying. We need people like you. And the joke I told somebody was, I'm even better than like me. I'm me. So it's up to you.
Right.
It's up to you you have to make the bold decision. I made the bold choice to run and to make my case. But that feeling that these people have of like, we really need somebody new. This guy's really interesting, but I'm not as familiar with him. Well, what is a bold new choice? It is not an old, comfortable choice. Like, you can't make a bold new choice from a stale, familiar option. And I think there's a disconnect that I'm running into, but I'm winning more and more people, but that needs to be accelerated. And I'm hoping the ads, the ads and the mailers, which focus on two things, that I'm a comedian. I can take it to Trump better than anybody, except of course, George Conway.
Well, he's not in your district.
I'm so on every level, I'm mad. And I love it when I see Midas Touch cutting ties with Michael Cohen.
Yeah.
Never could return an email from me, but they've employed a thug.
Oh, they're the worst. I'm not a fan of what they do. I'm sorry. I like Ron Filipowski. I like some of the elements what they do, and I'm glad it's popular. Don't get me wrong. It's not envy or
Preaching
jealousy.
to the choir plus clickbait is not my idea of dynamic activism and real resistance. And then George Conway, thank you for getting Trump into office. You will never be forgiven for that.
Right,
Sorry.
right. No,
your maker can forgive you.
He's running as a Democrat. He's not a Democrat. Anyway, but I'm glad that you savaged him, and I'm glad that you brought up the Michael Cohen thing. I don't know if you know much more about it. I don't know exactly what happened, but Midas Touch dropped him after he basically it's not an important story to me, but back to your campaign. You're at the League of Women Voters. You're resonating. And hopefully, I guess I just want to ask you what you're hearing from voters in terms of anecdotally, are there issues that they talk about and more talking about when they get to meet you, trying to get to know you? What are you hearing from them?
I hear the thing I heard, and this is why I try to combine what I heard in the street when I was getting signatures. Those are your regular voters.
Sure, yeah, that's a good point.
From people engaged at these high-level meetings.
Right.
Fighter. Don't be a pussy. And I'm sorry to use that language, but I want somebody who's really going to go in there and mix it up. That's what I heard often on the street. And also, stock trading was a surprisingly common question. And I don't say that because the leader in this polling right now, according to his own polling, is Tom Malinowski, who was investigated for stock trading issues the last time he was in Congress and doesn't live in the district. If you want to tell me you're going to fight Trump and you're not willing to fight Tom Kaine Jr. in your own district, there's a disconnect there. And when I have regular people saying, I'm concerned about stock trading, because that's just a resonant issue of fairness that the average person who's fed up with politics sort of has on their mind. It may not be the most important issue. In fact, it's not the most important issue, but engaging voters.
As that their representative was accused of it credibly, it is an issue that they care about and know about. Nobody should really want politicians to be able to invest publicly traded companies, but it's probably relevant because they're familiar with it. Because not only that, you had in your state, of course, the Senator Menendez, who was also saying corruption is not
Bobby Goldbars, as he was known.
Oh God! So New Jersey corruption, people understand, and people understand just general corruption. That one would seem so. That's interesting. All right, that's what you're hearing from them.
What frustrated me is I read some of the articles after and was kind of disappointed in the coverage. People in the room knew who won. If there was a winner of the event, it was me.
So I want to go listen to that 35 minutes because I want to know who you're running against. Maybe I'll have an idea or two. I doubt I will, but I just want to hear the perspective of how they sound. And I'm sure I would agree with you that you stood out. I'm sure of it. There can't be any question about it. Although, I don't know. I haven't seen the field, but
you'll see it. You'll see it. And what frustrated me is I read one of the articles and the person said, I was looking for someone to talk about mass transit. And so I'm leaning towards candidate X. And I was like, if you had come by the only booth after the talk, where you can meet and greet the candidates, I would have told you there was one candidate who took the public bus to this event.
Right, exactly. You know more about public transit than anybody up there. You actually use it. And so
that's when you have 3 minutes to make your case, you're hoping that you entice people to then come engage with you in a more in-depth, we have an hour for in-depth.
Do you have a line in there? By the way, I think it's interesting because you take public transportation so often. You don't even own a car. Do you not have a line in your 3 minutes there? And if you care about this, you should ask me because I'm the one who's on the train with you every day.
And the problem is if I had 5 minutes or 10 minutes, I would.
Not that relevant.
But you're sort of going, here are the issues. Here are my main pillars. And then here's why you should consider me as a candidate. And then come talk to me about policy and things like that after.
Right.
But my message does resonate with people. And so many people came up to me and said, I like listening to you so much more than everybody else. They were very cookie cutter. And it's not like I'm getting up there being like, hey man, what the fuck? No, it's just it's different. It's different.
Right.
It's still smart. It's
well,
still
you're a fighter
elevated,
and you're
but
smart
it's different.
and you know how to do this. You're very, very effective at it. All right. Well, listen.
But I've tried to frame also, and this is the one issue I really did talk about. As I said we didn't champion Joe Biden's accomplishments, so I think it's unfair to call us failures on a policy level. We failed on a communications level. And I said, and when I hear in 2024 that Kamala Harris lost because democracy is a losing issue, we have the burden of having to educate, engage, and not be too annoying. That is the triple burden of being Democrats in this day and age. It would be great if it was different. It's not. That's the field we are given, and we have to adapt to the field as it is. Exactly. And I said, democracy cannot be a losing issue. We lost in communicating it. Because if democracy is a losing issue, then we should all go home.
Yeah, well, you got to call it
be
something
with our loved ones. And but if it's not, then you need somebody who can communicate it and make it more real to people. Yeah. And I said, I didn't get to this part because I didn't make the pointed attack, but I was going to say Democrats can be the party of good government. I've said this in other talks. We can be the party of good government. That's why I'm for banning stock trading, term limits, banning partisan gerrymandering. And if we can embrace that as a party, we can either gain as a country with better democracy, or silver lining, we can paint Republicans as the party against good government and make it a clear black and white distinction. And if you nominate a guy who's carpetbagging and has been investigated for stock trading, you undercut our moral standing in the race to be the party that stands up for democracy.
And you're a lazy name recognition voter. Oh, I know that name. Yeah, I like his campaign poster I saw on the side of the road.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, I am happy to hear that you're doing as well as can possibly be expected, if not better. And if you want to donate to JL's campaign, now is the best time to do that. If you haven't,
the 24th is the only filing deadline pre-election. So, if every Pete listener just says, "Here's $10." That's huge
because that gets counted and that shows momentum and that helps you obviously spend on ads.
Yeah. And it's just getting us, like at this point, it's about getting to zero. We've laid out the money. We've organized our mail campaign and our online ad strategy now. And the last 2.5 weeks is going to be, flooding the zone with getting my name recognition to that up to the same level and hoping that the combo of tenants, rights attorney, and comedian intrigues enough people to then go look at the materials, look at the policies, look at me and realize, and that's why I know I was boring you and I was getting too in the weeds, but we targeted a larger group of Democrats than maybe was fiscally prudent because I said, if the theory of my case is that I can get sometimes voters to be engaged, whereas all these other people are relying on all the time voters, that's where I can make up the difference. And my theory is that somebody who works in tenant advocacy and somebody who is a comedian with hundreds of thousands of followers is bringing values and skills to this race that everybody says they want. Everybody uses the same buzzwords of fighter and affordability. It's getting really boring hearing those. And I am the one on the front lines of both of those things.
It's you. JL4NJ.com is the best place to go to donate. JL4NJ.com, and I hope send him $5 or $10 today. Help him at the filing deadline, which is just a few days away, and that would be a big deal. I want to get your analysis on a couple of things before I let you go here. Obviously, it's great to get the update on the campaign. We're so
and thank you for having me as always.
And inspired by you. I want to know how you're reacting, how you're dealing with, if it's coming up on the campaign, what we're seeing in Minnesota and what is an escalation of the tactics from the federal government now being compared more and more to a Gestapo. You're seeing these videos all the time. You're hearing the rhetoric. You're seeing what's happening. It would seem that if there is a strategy, it is to create a resistance that somehow becomes violent so that they can declare potentially martial law, maybe then decide not to have an election, suspend the election. We've seen this in other countries. There's a lot of speculation about that. What do you want to say about what you're seeing out of Minneapolis, what these tactics are, and how we should be responding?
By the way, Gestapo is who Trump thinks is the funny Marx brother, just to be clear. Thank you. That's for our older listeners. I don't speak in hyperbole a lot. I can sometimes be cynical when it comes to protests and things, just to be fully frank. I understand the value of protests, but sometimes I'm more about protest for change than I am protest for the feeling of community. I know that's sacrilege here. I'm just being totally honest on my gut feeling. This is a 1960s moment. This is like we are witnessing the destruction of America moment. And I've advocated that I think blue states should start to take some serious, legislatures should get together and start figuring out ways to starve the federal government of whatever state funds they can. And I know in some cases that's illegal, and I'm not really fully advocating a full-on illegal boycott of giving the federal government tax dollars. But on that level, I think drastic times, just like I've told people, we're in a crisis and you're looking at the same solutions when I'm on the campaign trail.
That's good messaging.
Drastic times call for drastic solutions, not insane solutions, not foolish solutions, but drastic. And we are in a place where there needs to be a real fight. And I don't want that fight to be physical, but we need to step up our response. I think blue states need to be like, you're not going to come for us. You're not going to send goon squads to our cities and states without any repercussions. And we send you more money. And I know some conservatives would be thrilled at starving the federal government of money. But the time now is for a full-throated stand. What we're witnessing is the nightmare that seemed like hyperbole. And, you know, I think obviously the killing in Minnesota was horrible, and ICE needs to be abolished. I think that at this point, that is, maybe I'm late to the rhetoric, and maybe I held out hope that it was simply, need for more restraints on Trump. You know, as a fellow candidate, John Bartlett had said early in the campaign, he said all those norms that we thought were norms need to become laws. And
interesting point. Yeah. Well,
but going forward, ICE can no longer exist. We need an immigration enforcement, but we need to end ICE and build up something better in its place to do those tasks, because Trump, as he does, has destroyed whatever ICE could have been or was in some better vision. It's dead. It's destroyed. It cannot exist as this organization anymore.
What we need more than anything else, and you would be involved with this if you were elected, is comprehensive immigration reform. But we're a long way from that. Right now, we just need to get the stormtroopers off the streets of America. And yeah, I think that when we had talked about we've talked about like civilians going, house to house, creating their own community militias and so on. We've thought of every scenario and been worried and predicted them in many ways. And in some ways we've been right, some ways we've been wrong. But it would seem that they are going to continue to use the issue of undocumented people, calling them criminals, criminalizing everybody, going after everybody, black and brown. People are like, oh, they're mostly focused on, brown people. Well, Somalians are black, and they're going after tribal, Native Americans as well have been being targeted. So it's bad. It's really bad out there in Minneapolis. And I think you captured it really well. I don't know what else there is to say about that before I ask you about a couple of other things.
I just remember as a prosecutor, when I worked at the DA's office many, many years ago, when they started lowering the standard for cops. And I remember even fellow cops being like, oh, shit. Just meaning like the slippage, the leakage that will happen as you lower. You already have some bad cops, and now you're cutting the education requirement in half, and you're lowering the salary. So you're sort of like enticing. You're opening the gate to more people who could be problematic. And ICE, I've said this now, my theory on Trump and Putin is not a compromat situation as much as it is. I think Trump wants to be Putin. And this is just like Putin is like empty out the prisons for our, this is like Trump's like open up Arkham Asylum. Anybody here with 6 weeks of high school and, no more than 2 felonies can join ICE. I'm exaggerating, of course.
And you don't have to be in any kind of shape or have any kind of education. It doesn't matter what you've done wrong in the past. It doesn't matter what you've done right. Like the standard is 2 letters of reference from the Klan will suffice in the place of a high school diploma. It's a kind of a joke, but not really, because you've got Proud Boys and others. That actually gives you credibility, apparently, where there's a lot of reporting that says they're being brought in or recruited, and they're perfect for the job because they have a personal incentive. I mean, it's their mission to be part of the white supremacist, ethno-nationalist, ethnic cleansing. So it's happening. We're watching it happening. We're seeing the resistance.
But the libertarians are on the front lines of all the protests that I see. You know, this is what they've always feared. It's such a joke. It's the hypocrisy is so obvious. Like when it's just like
libertarians have always talked about the tyranny of the federal government. Yeah. And now when the federal government is tyrannizing people, where are those same libertarians?
And maybe some of the high level ones, I don't mean to be, obviously, I'm sure like a Justin Amash is like furious and disgusted. He's been a fairly, at least consistent voice, the guy from Michigan.
Yeah.
But most of them on these issues just realize, oh, your libertarianism stops at, I just really kind of hated Democrats.
Well, they don't want the federal government to have any regulations on banking or pollution. They only want the federal government to enforce law enforcement, and I guess not against white-collar criminals who are robbing us all blind and defrauding people left and right and getting pardoned. But, you know, violent criminals, especially if they're from another country.
I just want to do drugs, get my mistress to have an abortion, and get all the crypto.
Let me ask you about Greenland, and what do you think about this whole thing and Europe's reaction to it? Where's this going?
What we have to, you know, Donald Trump is I've called him one of the 4 worst things to ever happen in America. I put him on Mount Rushmore with slavery, Jim Crow, Native genocide, and the second election of Donald Trump. I'm not even kidding. I think those are the 4 worst things in American history.
Yeah.
People will say, oh, the internment of the Japanese Americans. I go, awful. But Franklin Roosevelt didn't run on interning Japanese Americans. Like Donald Trump ran on bigotry, hate, xenophobia, and was a traitor. And America said, yes. That's why I consider it worse, because it's like a premeditated crime against the country.
Yeah.
Greenland, like a lot of things, you know, I'm watching Canada make deals with China, you know, to
South
get
America
their better.
Is also South American countries are making alliances with Asia and Europe.
And I think the Greenland thing to me is Donald Trump, he wants 1950s domestic America. He wants 1970s sort of international policy. And he wants to be like an 19th century explorer or something. Like he is worse than I thought. That's the thing. Like, and I think he's a humongous piece of shit, but he's just worse because he's like, it's like he read a history book on America and picked out all the worst things from each era and said, let's do that.
Right. The Monroe Doctrine, the Donroe Doctrine. I guess when you say worse than thought, I think that's a pretty fair thing because I don't think many people thought he would have these kind of imperialistic incentives or desires. I think we knew he wouldn't be reined in, but he just never really talked about that. I think we were surprised. If I'm right, the reporting said he never mentioned Greenland on the campaign. That became something he started talking about after he was elected, and obviously Venezuela and obviously Iran. And so he's been an expansionist, a colonialist, an imperialist, whatever you want to call it.
But it's worse
nothing that quite lines up with the past, certainly. So
I just think it's completely based on his ego. Like, I don't even think he has a real doctrine for the country.
No, it's malignant narcissism. He's taking things and naming them after himself and taking credit for them. I mean, he just took someone else's award and is claiming it as his own.
Yeah. It's the Greenland thing is a disgrace, and I guess he figured if I can't break NATO by supporting Russia, I can break NATO by attacking it. We're such a fucking joke, and it's so embarrassing. And I know we need to have a post-Germany, a post-World War II Germany attitude towards MAGA, which is in 50 years, schools should still be taught that MAGA is one of the most disgraceful, shameful moments in this country's history. There should be a racist Republican running 50 years ago crying about how we're demonizing our ancestors from MAGA, the way they talk about the Civil War now. They're that bad. And the question is, do good people and Democrats have the generational strength to not fucking let up just because 2 election cycles? Well, you can't blame Trump for that. You're goddamn right I can. You're fucking right. He ruined this country for a generation, structurally, legally, internationally, maybe for 2 generations. You absolutely can pin our future on him because what he's done, and there are things in the Supreme Court, better people on your show could talk about this, like Eric Siegel, but like just the undoing of Chevron is one of those things that the average person will not understand, but they will understand that their government is deeply ineffective years from now. And then they will pin that on Democrats who are the party of government, and they will pin on them. And it's like, well, you see, the Supreme Court said we have to write everything into legislation. We can no longer delegate things to experts. We now have to become unrealistic experts on everything we legislate, which will grind legislation to a halt. And people, that's another thing that people will not understand until they just realize their government sucks worse. This is all the Trump regime, the Trump Supreme Court. And I just think that we need to be prepared for, and I said this in an event. I said, I talk sometimes in terms of incrementalism, that when it comes to healthcare, maybe it's time to abandon the Medicare for all as the rallying cry, or keep that as the goal. But it would be nice if the Bernie Sanders wing sort of started picking off incremental wins instead of always getting the rhetorical win of like, this is the goal. Yay. Where are we? Where are we in terms of moving that goal forward? And I said, if you think incrementalism is a bad thing, which some progressives think it's, a way to stop real progress, ask Republicans who got fucking Roe v. Wade ended if they hate incrementalism. Yeah, no, if they thought a 50-year march to taking that right away wasn't worth the patience and effort and time.
Great points. All great points. And I appreciate your perspective as always. Really what I was hoping to hear on all of this to some extent, though not knowing quite how you would put it. But as always, I appreciate it a lot, which is why I follow and support you for Congress and everything that you've done throughout your career. So I really appreciate it. Is there anything else? Is there any other issues that we really needed to, I've covered a lot right there specifically. I think that's good. I'll let you go. Enjoy your Sunday.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me as always.
Yep. Give our best to Laura over Clifford, and we'll be thinking of you, sending you light and love and support. Again, the filing deadline is in 3 days. JL4NJ. If you haven't sent them $5 or $10, please go do that right now. It is something that you can do to make a difference. People constantly ask. They feel so helpless and hopeless, and I get it. I do, but there's just so much that you can do in all kinds of ways to help the people around you. And JL could use your help, and we could use him in Congress. How was that?
That was great. Yeah, I agree. It's I see what's out there, and the rhetoric that Democrats are saying, this is a chance, this race is a chance to meet that rhetoric instead of wishing someone else elects a charismatic communicator who can engage more people. It's almost like NIMBY, like NIMBYism, except, oh no, my representative, I want to be somebody from my town that I know very well, but I hope that other district where I don't have a choice, I hope they make the bold choice. And I'm trying to tell people the time is now. If you believe this is a crisis, this is the time to hire a crisis actor. Me.
You ruined it. You ruined the clip, at least. If that was going to be a clip, I was going to bring up music behind it. Now it's like, vote. I'm Alex Jones, and I endorse this message.
J.L. Cauvin was at a meeting of the League of Women Voters.
I turned him into Stone Cold Steve Austin.
And if you think J.L. Cauvin is the guy you want to elect, then vote for him.
That's good. Let me ask you something just came up in my mind. Sorry.
Great.
Keep it here 2 more minutes because I was on Dina Obidalla's SiriusXM show with political commentator named Tara Dublin. I'm not that familiar with her. I'd been on with before. I like her. Smart, progressive, very passionate, but seems to, in my opinion, have fallen for 2 conspiracy theories that she mentioned in the hour. I pushed back on both. My question to you is general, and I'll tell you specifically what I'm talking about. I am seeing, it's not a political thing as much, but I'm seeing, I used to always say that left-wing progressives are far less likely to support conspiracy theories, certainly in terms of any kind of mass movement to change a law. People often talked about the anti-vax movement was left. I would say no, it's not. It's actually not. A lot of people are susceptible to that regardless of their politics. But now I'm seeing a lot of credible people with platforms falling for things, and increasingly it's harder because of AI. I saw Jonathan Alter, who is a respected journeyman of a journalist, fall for an AI video, and I've done it. But this woman in this conversation, I believe, believes in a conspiracy theory. I don't know if you heard about it, but there's a person named Sasha Riley claiming that Trump assaulted her when she was little and now she's transitioned. I haven't followed it closely. I looked into it, and I believe that there's not any kind of corroboration or journalism of it. Now, what I'm saying is, when I'm asking you to diagnose, is when we have a bias, when we tend to want to believe a thing, doesn't mean that we should. And it's dangerous when we start saying that Trump raped someone that he didn't. We don't have any proof or, credible accusations of that. I think there are 22 women or something that have credibly accused him. They've been corroborated. Journalists have looked through these things. But that doesn't mean the next one is also the case. And she said that 2024, Trump stole the election. And I was like, show me your information. But how do you answer that question that we on the left, progressives, the enlightened, those of us on Earth One, don't start thinking the moon is made of cheese because we want to believe that Trump made it, squirted cheese all over it or something. That was a terrible,
Trump squirting cheese all over something sounds really gross.
I'm sorry to everybody who saw it, listened to it, and specifically to you to have to answer for
it. That's what I call it. When I'm with a woman, I say, all right, get ready for the cheese squirt.
Here we go.
Anyway.
Just a Cheeto comes out.
Well, here's in a weird way why all the fake stuff has made me more cautious. And I think that's the difference. I see a lot of fake posts online, and I'll see friends share them. And it's like a quote from somebody. And it's like, he said, this hockey player said this. And I go, no, he didn't. And it's made me wary of things. And I feel like there are people who haven't taken that step back, so that they look at things, they'll disbelieve something that contradicts them, but they won't disbelieve something that confirms them.
That's what I meant.
I'm now in a space where whenever I see something that's too good to be true, where I'm like, oh wow, this athlete, I didn't expect to say that, said exactly the thing I would say to Trump if I met him. And then I'm like, okay, this didn't happen. Nobody credible is reporting this. I think what social media has done is it's made things so convenient, and people are so trained now that they just kind of accept it. They let it wash over them. And I'm fortunate to just be of a mindset where it's like, okay, if something's too good to be true, then I need to find out. And when people tell me he stole the election, my thought process on that is, do you not think there's any credible journalist out there who wouldn't love to break that story? Do you have to believe in such an odd conspiracy that you, my Twitter follower, have shared with me a Substack I've never heard of that makes the case, but no one else, even a more credible or a bigger Substack. I'm not even saying it has to get to the level of New York Times or above them, Bari Weiss at CBS News. I'm not saying it has to get to that level. That was a joke, people. But it's gotten to no level. It's gotten to no level above you, Twitter follower, informing me of this. And, I'm actually working with somebody. He is a donor, but he's in the tech space, and he calls himself an ethical AI guy who wants to start working with me in terms of creating a platform and kind of an advocacy for making people aware, creating a different level of awareness for AI and what it can do in media and journalism and in politics in terms of reframing how people approach it, because there's so much stuff people are absorbing now. And like I said, just like I say to the voters at these meetings, you and I, Pete, are at a different level. We enter with sort of a good heart and skepticism.
Everybody, but listen, I'm just saying that those of us with any kind of platform, we should have a standard. I want to believe that we have a standard that we follow ourselves before we say publicly anything into. I mean, everybody is on camera with their own channel and their platform. And I'm old, so I still want to follow the rules of journalism as best I can. And I think that is where your credibility should lie too, and your reputation and your value increasingly. But it's hard for people to discern who is telling them the truth or who is practicing, who has at least a set of values that they use before they go and say something into a camera and then post it on any major platform.
Yeah, people have, but this is like new money, social media, you know what I mean? Versus like journalism is old money, and there's a different dignity and rule following.
And the incentives for that new money are corrupted, obviously. And so, there's a billion people faking things online and making you think somebody said something to get clicks to get money. So that's what I wanted to get to. And I'm glad that we did. And thank you for staying extra. And I appreciate you and everybody for watching live. JL4NJ.com. One more time. Go donate. JL, thank you very much.
Thank you, Pete.
All right. That is it. JL Cauvin. Go watch it on YouTube or Substack. Go send him money. Support him. Follow him. Give him good ratings and reviews. All of the rest. Shout out to Nick DiFabrizio and the Sandman who are supporting him in New Jersey, and anybody else who's supporting him in New Jersey with not only money but rides. I saw Nick driving him around on Thursday night, which is pretty cool. We love JL Cauvin. Very grateful to have him here joining me today. Should have Dean Obeidallah on the show tomorrow. We're supposed to be live today at 11 a.m., so look for that. May happen, may not. You never know. These things, these podcast scheduled appearances that we all make. And so hopefully we'll have Dean later. You can hear that. And on the podcast tomorrow, Tuesday. All right, that's it. That's all. Be the change you want to see. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being you. Act local. Take care of yourself so you can take care of others. And I will talk to you tomorrow. Thank you for taking care of me. Jon Carroll taking us out right now.
Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Well, there's a whole lot more of us who know what's right. They'll keep right on ignoring us if we keep things right. We got to open up the window to let in some light. You gotta stand up. That's right. You got to rise up. You got to stand up. You gotta stare the devil straight in the eye. We got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear when all you hear is a lie. Don't get up off of your butt, get down off of your fence. Even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense. And you stand up, stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town. Just stand up, stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Boy, you better stand up, stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. She's the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up, stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up, they had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. Alright, we got to speak up, we got to reach up, and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up.